300 million years ago, Earth's atmosphere was thick with water vapor and oxygen levels surged to 35%, literally turning the air into a giant powder keg. In that stifling world, just a single bolt of lightning was enough to incinerate entire continents. But that very danger was the source of super fuel for history's craziest evolutionary experiment. The buzzing of insects was no longer background noise, but the roar of giant armored tanks. Arthropleura was as long as a car. Meganeura had wingspans like eagles. This is the Carboniferous, the only era where invertebrates turned this planet into a true death zone, where size was the only rule of survival. Welcome to travel back in time to the 359 million year mark. If you stepped out of the time machine right now, the first feeling to hit you would not be fear, but suffocation. The air is thick, heavy, and humid like a giant sauna. This is the Carboniferous. At this time, individual continents were drifting closer together to prepare for the formation of the great supercontinent Pangaea. Due to a unique geographical structure, most of the land was located around the equator, creating a hot and humid tropical climate zone covering nearly the entire globe. No freezing winters, no autumn with falling leaves, only rainy seasons and vast, waterlogged swamps. Look around. You won't see familiar tree species like oaks, pines, or grass. Instead, there is a completely alien plant world. Dominating the horizon is lepidodendron, also known as the scale tree. Though reaching up to 50 meters, equivalent to a 15-story building biologically, they were not true woody trees, but giant relatives of today's liverworts and horsetails. Their trunks had no hard bark, but were covered in a scaly layer, rough like crocodile skin, absorbing moisture directly from the air. Under your feet, ferns are not just low bushes. They are as large as coconut trees, forming dense forest canopies that block out the sun. This is a world of eternal green, but also a world of silence. You won't hear birds singing or monkeys calling because vertebrates, birds, and mammals have not yet appeared. The only sound breaking the stillness is the wind whistling through scaly leaves, sharp cracks of thunder in the distance, and the splashing water of endless swamps. But why are these trees so important? The answer lies in their death. In modern ecosystems, when a tree falls, bacteria and fungi quickly decompose it, returning carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. But in the Carboniferous, nature encountered a rare technical glitch. Plants of this period had evolved a super durable compound called lignin, wood substance, to help them reach upward. However, the wood-decomposing bacteria and fungi of that time had not yet evolved to eat this new material. As a result, billions of tons of dead tree trunks did not decompose. They piled on top of each other, sinking deep into the mud, taking all the carbon they had absorbed into the ground. When carbon was buried permanently, the oxygen released from photosynthesis was not consumed again. It accumulated gradually, bit by bit in the atmosphere over millions of years. The result was a supercharged atmosphere. Today's oxygen concentration is about 21%, but at the peak of the Carboniferous, this number soared to 35%. A 14% difference might sound small, but biologically, it's the difference between a bicycle and a Formula One racing car. For lunged animals like us, 35% oxygen can cause poisoning with long-term breathing. But for arthropods like insects, centipedes, and spiders, this was the key that opened a divine door. Insects do not have lungs and blood to transport oxygen like humans. They breathe passively through a system of small tubes called tracheae, leading air directly from spiracles on their bodies into each cell. At normal oxygen concentrations, this system has a physical limit. If the body is too large, oxygen cannot diffuse deep enough inside, and the animal will suffocate. That is why today you do not see any cockroaches as big as dogs. But with a concentration of 35%, the dense atmospheric pressure forced oxygen deeper, faster, and more efficiently into every nook and cranny of the organism's body. The physical barrier was broken. Abundant energy allowed the metabolic process to take place more vigorously than ever. Nature gave the green light. The size race officially began. And from these humid swamps, real monsters emerged. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a dense fern forest. The thick, moisture-laden air makes sweat pour out immediately. But something is shaking the ground beneath your feet. A rhythmic, heavy vibration, like an army marching in silence. From within the emerald mist, a giant silhouette slowly emerges, tearing through the dense vegetation. It is not a beast nor a dinosaur. It is Arthropleura. This is the creature representing the most insane aspect of the Carboniferous period. With a length of up to 2.6 meters and a width of half a meter, Arthropleura holds the record as the largest terrestrial invertebrate to ever exist in Earth's 4.5 billion year history. Its body is a marvel of biological engineering. Enclosed by about 30 armor segments, tergites as hard as steel, stacked like the shields of an ancient Roman legion. This chitinous shell is thick and glossy, reflecting the faint light filtering through the canopy. Beneath that armor are hundreds of pairs of legs. Exactly how many, the fossils haven't given us an absolute number, but it's estimated at about 60 to 80 pairs. They operate rhythmically like the pistons of a steam engine, creating massive thrust that helps this 100-kilogram body glide over the muddy ground without sinking. But what kind of creature was Arthropleura really? For centuries, scientists looked at its large, powerful jaws and labeled it a bloodthirsty predator. However, recent fossil discoveries in Scotland and North America, especially specimens that preserved stomach contents and fossilized droppings, coprolites, have painted a much more complex picture. Most likely, Arthropleura was a gentle giant, a herbivore or omnivore, acting as biological bulldozers of the ancient forest. They roamed the forest floor using their muscular strength to knock down rotting ferns, crush the hard shells of primitive gymnosperms, and clean up the ecosystem. However, in nature, being herbivorous does not mean being weak. Imagine a hypothetical encounter based on the ecological evidence of that time. On a sultry afternoon, Arthropleura is using its strong mandibles to peel away the bark of a dead Sigillaria trunk. The pungent smell of resin spreads. Nearby, the swamp water ripples. A Proterogyrinus, a 2-meter-long predatory amphibian that looks like a cross between a crocodile and a salamander, slithers onto the shore. This amphibian is the master of the waters, with teeth as sharp as daggers used to tear fish flesh. It sees Arthropleura with its back turned. Predatory instincts arise. Proterogyrinus lunges forward, mouth agape, intending to deliver a bite to the giant millipede's flank. A dry crunching sound rings out. The predator's teeth glance harmlessly off the super-hard armor shell. Arthropleura does not panic at all. It turns its head, not to flee, but to fight. It performs a classic millipede defensive move. Rearing its front half high, displaying its paler underbelly, which is protected by hundreds of spiny legs waving in the air. From a height of over 1 meter, it looks down at the attacker. Its compound eyes, though having poor vision, are still enough to identify the threat. Facing an armored living wall that shows no fear, the amphibian is forced to back down. It hissed and then slithered back into the murky water. On the dry land of the Carboniferous, Arthropleura had no natural enemies. It was an invulnerable tank. But even tanks have an Achilles heel. That is the time of ecdysis. To grow, Arthropleura was forced to escape its cramped old shell. This is a moment of life and death. It finds a secluded tree hollow. Its body begins to twitch, splitting the dorsal shell. For several hours, it crawls out with a soft, pale, and wet body. At this time, high oxygen concentration is a double-edged sword. It helps the new body harden faster, but also makes the animal consume an enormous amount of energy. If detected at this moment, even a small spider could kill the giant king. That is the price to pay for great size. If the ground belonged to the Arthropleura tanks, then the Carboniferous sky belonged to an air force more fearsome than anything you can imagine. Meganeura. Forget the pretty, fragile dragonflies of today. Meganeura was a member of the insect group called griffin flies, with a wingspan of up to 75 centimeters. To make it easy to visualize, this wingspan is equivalent to a large pigeon or even a small falcon. But don't let the comparison with birds fool you. This is an armored killing machine. The scariest thing about Meganeura is not just its size, but its sound. With a heavy body and wide wingspan, Meganeura could not fly as smoothly as modern dragonflies. When it took off, it created a low-frequency sound, loud and threatening. The engine sound of a large drone circling right over your head. In the quiet forest without bird song, this sound was a pre-announced death sentence. Why could Meganeura fly with that size? The answer again lies in oxygen. The dense air of the Carboniferous provided much better lift than today's thin atmosphere. Furthermore, its tracheal system was supercharged by 35% oxygen, providing explosive energy for the flight muscles. Meganeura could perform sharp turns, sudden acceleration, and even fly backwards, skills that made it the absolute ruler of three-dimensional space. Its predatory mechanism was brutal and efficient to the point of perfection. Huge compound eyes occupied almost the entire head, consisting of tens of thousands of small lenses, ommatidia, allowing for 360-degree vision and the ability to detect motion many times faster than the human eye. It saw the world in the form of slow-motion streams, where not a single flinch of prey could escape its gaze. Observe a typical hunt. On a fern branch, a Hylonomus, a tiny reptile, the ancient ancestor of mammals and humans, is timidly poking its head out of a tree hollow. It is only about 20 centimeters long, looking like a small lizard. It thinks it is safe under the dense foliage. But from a height of 10 meters, Meganeura has locked its target. It folds its wings, diving down like a cruise missile. Its 6 spiny legs were not used for walking. In fact, Meganeura's legs were very weak on the ground, but they formed a deadly basket trap while flying. In an instant, the Hylonomus is snatched and lifted into the air. It struggles in despair, but the spines on Meganeura's legs have locked it tight. And the most horrific part begins. Meganeura does not need to land on the ground to eat. It is an aerial predator. It uses extremely powerful mandibles, 2 razor-sharp serrated blades, to crush the prey's head while still in flight. It tears the victim apart, greedily devouring the protein-rich flesh to fuel its next flight. Blood and debris fall scattered to the forest below, warning other small creatures of the price of carelessness. But Meganeura's life does not only begin in the sky. Its horror begins underwater. Meganeura larvae, nymphs, live beneath the swamps. If the adults are nightmares of the sky, then the larvae are monsters of the swamp. They grow up to 30 to 40 centimeters long, hiding themselves beneath the mud. They possess a secret weapon called a labial mask, a jaw structure that can catapult forward in the blink of an eye to seize prey. Small fish, tadpoles, and even the larvae of other insect species are all their victims. Meganeura is an amphibious ruler, master of the water in its youth and tyrant of the sky as an adult. As the glowing red sun sets behind the canopies of lepidodendron scale trees, the carboniferous forest sinks into darkness. But do not think that this is the time to rest. Darkness in the carboniferous is not at all peaceful. It merely shifts the rain into the hands of stealth predators. Creeping between massive tree roots, a creature with a shiny black shell is on the move. That is Pulmonoscorpius, the lung scorpion. If you shudder at the sight of today's scorpions, then Pulmonoscorpius will make your heart stop. Fossils found in Scotland show they reached up to 70 centimeters in length, as large as an adult cat. Why the name lung scorpion? Because its fossils show a clear adaptation to high oxygen levels. Its book lungs were much larger and more complex than those of its modern descendants. Abundant oxygen allowed it to maintain high-intensity hunting activities without becoming exhausted. Pulmonoscorpius was not a passive ambush predator. It was an active hunter. Its large eyes, much bigger than those of modern scorpions, suggest it hunted by sight, possibly under moonlight or through the ability to perceive ultraviolet light. It possessed two deadly weapons: powerful pincers to grip prey, and a curved tail containing a massive venom sac. With such a body size, the volume of venom it injected into its victims was enormous. A single sting could take down large amphibians or permanently paralyze the nervous system of any creature unlucky enough to step on it. The rustling sound of its armor scraping against dry leaves was the final sound many small creatures ever heard. And the ground held more than just scorpions. It was also scattered with the sophisticated traps of Mesothelae, a group of primitive ancient spiders. Do not imagine spiderwebs hanging from trees. In this era, flying insects had not yet thrived, except for Meganeura, which was too large to be caught with silk. So spiders did not yet need to weave nets up high. Instead, they were architects of the underground. Mesothelae were about 40 to 50 centimeters long, with a clearly segmented abdomen. They dug underground burrows, reinforcing the walls with silk to prevent cave-ins. The entrance was cleverly camouflaged and with silk mixed with soil and leaf litter, forming a trap door. But the sophistication lay in the warning system. From the burrow entrance, they spun out dozens of tripwires that radiated outward like the spokes of a bicycle wheel. The spider lay motionless just beneath the trapdoor, legs resting lightly on the signaling threads. A giant cockroach passes by, its leg lightly touching a thread. The signal is transmitted. The spider identifies the exact position, size, and speed of the prey. The trapdoor bursts open. A black shadow lunges out at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Massive fangs, chelicerae, sink into the prey's back, injecting venom that liquefies its internal organs. In a flash, both hunter and prey vanish underground, leaving the trapdoor to close silently as if nothing had ever happened. The Carboniferous was a world where safety was a luxury. There were dragons in the sky, tanks on the ground, and stealth assassins in the darkness. Life exploded with terrifying size and power, fueled by oxygen. But the very prosperity built on this fragile foundation also contained the seeds of destruction. The paradise of giants was about to face its harshest challenge, a formless enemy more devastating than any other: fire. We often think of oxygen as the source of life, a gentle and nourishing gas. But that is because we live in an atmosphere of only 21% oxygen. In the Carboniferous, at a 35% concentration, oxygen revealed its cruel, true face. It was a frenzied combustion agent. Imagine lighting a match in this world. In modern times, it only flares up slightly and then goes out. But in the Carboniferous, that match would explode like fireworks. The flame would be a dazzling white, hotter, more intense, and nearly impossible to extinguish. And Carboniferous nature had no shortage of matches. With its hot and humid tropical climate, lightning storms were a common occurrence. A bolt of lightning tore through the dark purple sky, striking a withered lepidodendron tree. Instantly, the tree trunk exploded. In a heartbeat, the fire spread at the speed of a rocket. The most terrifying thing was even wet wood burned. The oxygen concentration was so high that wood moisture was no longer a barrier. The swamp forests, which were naturally safe from fire, now turned into giant incinerators. Fire leapt from canopy to canopy, creating firestorms that wiped out hundreds of square miles of jungle. This was when giant size became a death sentence. An Arthropleura crawled slowly beneath the layer of leaf litter. When the flames arrived, the thick armor that once protected it from every enemy now became an oven. It was too heavy to run fast, too large to crawl deep into small rocky crevices. Crackling sounds rang out as the chitinous shells of thousands of insects were roasted. In the sky, billowing black smoke choked the spiracles of the Meganeura. Their wings, though powerful, could not overcome the surging updrafts of hot air. A series of fighter jets fell like ripe fruit. These global wildfires were not just disasters. They were a ruthless mechanism of natural selection. They left behind thick layers of charcoal in the geological record, silent evidence of the price paid for an atmosphere too rich in energy. But while the giants were writhing in a sea of fire, small, weak creatures were finding a chance to survive in deep crevices underground. Look closely beneath the unburned ferns. There is a small creature, about 20 centimeters long, trembling inside a hollow log. It has 4 legs, scaly skin, and large, flexible eyes. It is Hylonomus, one of Earth's first reptiles, and more importantly, it is the ancient ancestor of all modern mammals, birds, and reptiles. In other words, it is our very own forefather. At this time, Hylonomus was the ultimate underdog of the food chain. They were appetizers for Meganeura, toys for Mesothele spiders, and dessert for giant amphibians. They lived in hiding, eating small insects and only daring to venture out when the giants were sound asleep or gone. But Hylonomus possessed a secret weapon, a biological invention greater than giant size, more than venom, more than iron armor. An invention that would completely change the face of the earth, the amniote egg. To understand why it was so great, look at their rivals, the amphibians. Giant amphibians like Eriops or Proterogyrinus might be massive and ferocious, but they were chained to the water by an invisible bond. Their eggs are like frog eggs, soft slimy, and without a protective shell. If laid on land, the eggs will wither and die within minutes. Therefore, no matter how far they wander, amphibians are forced to return to the water to reproduce. They are the prisoners of the swamp. But Hillonymus and the early reptile lineages broke those chains. They created a private pond for their offspring. Amniotic eggs are enclosed in a shell that is leathery or as hard as lime. This shell performs two opposing tasks miraculously. It prevents water from escaping, retaining moisture, but allows oxygen to enter. Inside the shell is a perfect life support system. The amnion contains amniotic fluid, mimicking an aquatic environment so the embryo can develop without drying out. The yolk sac provides food. The allantois contains waste. This is truly a biological spacesuit. Thanks to it, reptiles can lay eggs anywhere, on hot sand, in dry tree hollows, or among rocks far from water sources. They are no longer dependent on the swamp. While Arthropleura needed damp forests to keep its giant body moist, and amphibians needed water to reproduce, our small ancestors were quietly evolving to conquer arid lands where no one had dared to set foot. When wildfires scorched the swamps, or when the climate began to change, the dependence on water would become the fatal weakness of those giants. And that is exactly what was about to happen. Nature was about to deliver a decisive blow. A global climate change event was approaching, which would tear apart the coal forests and put an end to the era of insects. The empire was about to collapse. About 305 million years ago, when the Carboniferous period was in its golden age, the Earth suddenly turned its back. A sudden and devastating climate change began to occur, known by scientists as the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. The root cause came from continental drift itself, as tectonic plates collided to form the supercontinent Pangaea. Giant mountain ranges like the Hercynian were uplifted, changing the flow of wind and moisture. Simultaneously, at the South Pole, Gondwana, glaciers began to spread, drawing water from the oceans and causing sea levels to drop. The consequences were catastrophic. The global climate shifted from hot and humid to cold and arid. The tropical rains that nourished the fern forests thinned out, giving way to droughts that lasted for centuries. Look down from space. The vast green of the coal forests was being torn apart. They did not disappear immediately, but were fragmented into small, isolated patches, like green islands in a sea of sand and arid dust. For the ecosystem, this was a death sentence. Habitat shrinkage caused biological populations to become isolated, leading to inbreeding and a decline in genetic diversity. But the real fatal blow did not lie in the land, but in the air. When trees died en masse due to drought, Earth's oxygen factories stopped operating. Oxygen levels began to plummet uncontrollably. From a peak of 35%, it dropped to dangerously low levels, close to or lower than current levels. The drop in oxygen was a disaster for everyone, but for giants like Arthropleura and Meganeura, it was a slow suffocation. Let's return to Arthropleura. Its massive 2.6-meter size originally only existed thanks to high oxygen pressure forcing air deep into its body. Now, as the air became thinner, its tracheal system became overloaded. It had to breathe faster, consuming more energy just to maintain basic life. The thick armor plating, once a source of pride and absolute protection, now becomes a burden of 1,000 pounds. Its muscles, deprived of oxygen, become weak. It can no longer move flexibly to search for food in the increasingly sparse forests. Furthermore, its massive body requires extremely high humidity to avoid dehydration. In the new dry air, the chitinous shell begins to crack. Arthropleura slowly dies out, not because it was hunted, but because its own body had become obsolete in the new environment. In the sky, the situation for Meganeura is equally tragic. The thinner air reduces lift. To stay airborne, they must flap their wings faster and consume more energy, all while food is scarce. The giant dragonflies no longer have the strength to take flight and hunt. They are forced to perch on dry branches, waiting for death or becoming a meal for other opportunists. The empire of the spineless giants collapses not with a loud bang like a meteor, but with the final sigh of a planet undergoing a transformation. While the old kings are in despair, the paupers of the past are rising strongly. Small groups of reptiles such as Hylonymus and the ancestors of synapsids, lizard-faced beasts, realize that this arid world is their paradise. Their scaly skin helps them retain water perfectly, unafraid of the harsh sun or dry winds. Active lungs help them breathe efficiently, even when oxygen levels drop. Hard-shelled eggs allow them to reproduce on the very dead lands that amphibians dare not approach. The world order is completely overturned. The centipedes and dragonflies were forced to evolve by shrinking to adapt to the low oxygen levels, becoming the tiny insects we see today. From the position of rulers, they became food. It is the cruel but fair law of nature. There are no eternal strongmen, only those who adapt best. The rainforest collapse event wiped out the coal forests, burying the remains of billions of creatures underground, leaving us an endless source of fossil fuels. But more importantly, it threw open the doors for vertebrates. From the ashes of the Carboniferous, reptiles would step onto the throne, ushering in the era of new giants, the Permian and later the Age of Dinosaur. Every time you see a piece of black coal, remember that you are holding the remains of a lost, glorious empire. The energy warming today's modern world is the sunlight buried along with the forests and giants of the Carboniferous 300 million years ago. The collapse of Arthropleura and Meganeura leaves behind an eternal lesson in evolution. In nature's fierce race for survival, the winner is not the biggest or the strongest, but the most resilient and best adapted. The small, timid creatures hiding in tree hollows back then stepped over the remains of giants to rise as masters of the earth, paving the way for our own appearance. Thank you for joining this journey back in time. If you found the video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any forgotten historical mysteries. See you in the next era.